fantasy. You know, it's fun.
So much in the fashion world is so kind of big and over the top.
It's sort of like you get to play dress up again, but with really beautiful clothes.
Fashion designers are completely influenced by film. Growing up, I used to really love to watch Grease.
I was a big fan of Clueless.
Saturday Night Fever with the white three-piece suit.
Scarface. American Gigolo.
The Devil Wears Prada is genius.
Legally Blonde and Hairspray.
Julia Roberts and Pretty Woman.
Breakfast at Tiffany's. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Don't you just love it?
With her bob and the little beret and
The vest, the hat, the ties.
Leg warmers, leggings, leotards. So tacky, matchy-matchy, high fashion, low fashion.
The clothes can almost make a movie, and the movies can make the clothes.
It's just like, wow, eye candy.
There's a whole notion of branding now. It's such an odd idea. Costume is about character.
The Oscars is the biggest fashion show in the world.
Hollywood takes its cues from the fashion world, but also influences what people wear.
The public embraces a character, and the public wants the clothes. It's the package. That's what movies are.
One designer's collection is among the most anticipated arrivals of every season. Known as the bad boy of French fashion, Jean-Paul Gaultier has revolutionized the industry. He changed the look of models on the catwalk. He put men in skirts. And he's responsible for one of the most famous bras in pop culture history. For his spring 2008 collection, Gaultier teamed up with renegades from another dimension to launch a new fashion rebellion.
Weigh anchor, all hands, prepare to make sail.
Pirates of the Caribbean had already proven to be a certified crowd pleaser. Starring Johnny Depp, the three-film franchise amassed over $1 billion worldwide. In the wake of the latest summer blockbuster, Gaultier pillaged the pirate look for his ready-to-wear collection.
What is piratage? Piratry is to take something, steal it, and make it in another way, and use it in another way. So it's what we are doing all the time in fashion.
Jean-Paul, you know, he's taking a little bit of the original pirates and putting a little bit of modern fashion with the two, kind of just bring the two together and, you know, glam it up a little bit.
Johnny Depp's character is freewheeling, and he's sexy, and he's just, so why not want to emulate something he wore?
Even I want to be as cool as Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, he's just the sexiest man alive.
I know that.
Pirates of the Caribbean, you saw the skulls and the bones in the next year and a half at least, and people are still wearing them. You see all the jewelry and the accessories.
Then you also had Alexander McQueen putting it on the scarves, and Sienna Miller was wearing it. So Pirates of the Caribbean, which I definitely think had an influence on it, brought it more mainstream and made it fun.
And you would think it would feel a little Disney, but it didn't. It was the way that people kind of interpreted that movie into their collections that made it modern and different.
In recent years, fashion has raided a lot more than pirate treasure.
Fashion designers are completely influenced by films. I mean, for instance, if you saw Michael Korish's collection for fall 2008-2009, it was all about the movie The Birds. Tippi Hedren is the person that he kind of was going for. It changes all the time, but I think designers look to film to go forward and modernize.
One day I was at a newsstand and I saw an Italian Vogue, and the cover was what I thought were outtakes from the film Blade Runner, when in fact it was actually a new photograph taken for the cover of Alexander McQueen's newest collection.
I feel a lot of the clothes from Dreamgirls are out this year. The long maxi dresses with the very colorful prints, which I used a lot. And it was very exciting to see a lot of the styles I used from the 70s are now on the fashion pages.
Fashion and film share a rich history of mutual inspiration. Both are about shaping and creating identities, with cinema playing a leading role in the ever-evolving cyclical traditions of style. Today, the relationship between these high-profile, big-money industries is both complementary and competitive.
I think that film does have a big impact on
on fashion. I think it always has. I think a lot of buyers in stores look to television shows and to movies for direction, for inspiration.
If our consumer has seen it in either a movie or on television, it validates it for them in a very, very big way.
If a movie is a huge commercial success and there's a celebrity in the movie, it's very common that a designer is going to pull from that and create a collection around it.
It's not just the clothes, I think it's the character and the actor. I think it's the whole fantasy of the film that captures somebody.
Movies have a lasting effect. They're iconic. You know, you can see where movies become cultish and they become classics that, you know, they're a brand. They become their own brand.
From the screen to the runway, or the runway to the screen, fashion is the common thread connecting Hollywood, star, and moviegoer.
The world is obsessed with celebrity. You know, someone does one movie, all of a sudden they're a superstar. They can't go anywhere without the paparazzi. And those are the people that can sell the products.
I think people are much more known for what they're wearing than for their films. They're known for a particular dress that they wore on a particular occasion rather than a role that they played.
Film and television has had such an influence on fashion. People look to movies and film as sort of an alternate reality.
It goes both ways. I think fashion influences the movies, and I think movies influence fashion.
What is fashion? Fashion is anything worn on the body that influences what other people wear.
Fashion's sort of like religion. Everyone has a different perspective on what it is. For some people, it's very, very natural. They don't think about it. It's just a part of their lives. For others, it's an obsession.
It's fantasy, you know, it's a fun way to escape.
And I'm really looking at the clothes. I am looking at the pretty girls, but I'm also looking at the clothes because it's just for stimulation, really. It's just like, wow, eye candy, get more visual.
The process of fashion is disposable. It's changeable. It moves constantly. What is good last week may not be good next week.
Fashion is whatever is chic now. And in that respect, it's really a constant negotiation between what looks good because it's elegant and what looks good because it's new.
First impression you get of a character. I mean, before they even speak a line, you see what they're wearing.
The job of a costume designer is to create the look of each character in the film. And that is how they visually appear on screen, but also how they appeal to the public psychologically.
The job of a costume designer is one of many aspects of the collaborative process of filmmaking. Costume designer is part of the storytelling process, one of the slices of the pie, just like the cinematographer or the production designer.
You know, we're creating a subliminal world where you see people a certain way, and in order for them to evolve and to become the person that they're going to become by the end of the movie, it's great to control the palette.
Sometimes my job is to make them look absolutely awful.
Where's my... You knocked off my shoe! No, what?
For 2 or 3 people that are the main characters in the scene, there may be 400 extras behind those main characters, and every one of them has to be dressed.
The primary purpose of costume design is to support this story and to create accurate characters. That's the secret.
Fashion in the real world and in the movies may start with different missions, but one recent big screen hit revealed their shared purpose as an external expression of inner character.
Costume is about character. Fashion is definitely not about character. Unless it's the character like Devil Wears Prada.
You have no style or sense of fashion.
Well, I think that depends on what you're...
No. That wasn't a question.
The Devil Wears Prada, as many people know, was a roman à clef written by a former assistant at Vogue, ostensibly about Anna Wintour, the editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine.
It was great to literally see behind the scenes and how the fashion industry runs.
The Devil Wears Prada is genius. Really, I was so impressed. I think I watched it 5 times and I got caught up in the clothes, and I rarely ever get caught up in clothes.
They're a little outlandish in terms of the fashion, but I think that a lot of it's really on the mark too, because so much in the fashion world is so kind of big and over the top.
The film mission of the fashion industry through a classic storytelling convention. Transformation, conveyed through the shorthand language of wardrobe.
The idea of a makeover is a very sort of generic, old convention in storytelling. It goes back to Pygmalion, sort of the idea that you can be an ugly duckling and then you can wake up and one day be a swan.
Anne Hathaway changes her sort of transition from just a nerdy assistant into a sort of a glamour, you know, fashionista. You see how she changes.
She came out with the Chanel jacket and the black boots and the tights and all the beautiful jewelry, and her hair was a little styled differently. It was pretty, you know, it was a great turning point.
She was kind of dumpy in the beginning, and in the end she was so polished and so together with the right looks.
Such transformation is a timeless facet of both fashion and film. The Devil Wears Prada offers a full-length treatment of a device Hollywood returns to decade after decade.
This idea that you can be a different person based on your clothes is just something that we've come to accept as a society, and it's something the fashion industry definitely exploits because they try to sell their clothes as a better personality for you or a better life for you. Hollywood likes this message too, because why not?
People really connect to anyone who's on screen, you know, whether it's an association of the time of their life when they saw that film or what the film was about. It's just there's something that is very evocative about seeing someone in a film that really speaks to you on a personal level.
Growing up, I used to really love to watch Grease, and I loved how Olivia Newton-John transformed into that bad girl with the black, really fitted tights and the curly hair, and that was definitely a fashion moment there for me.
Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman did it best. To see her transform from that hooker to glamorous, beautiful, classy woman, and she looked so beautiful, and oh, in the red dress with a beautiful necklace, and she has her hair up, and then Richard Gere doesn't even recognize her. You know, I always remember the little jewelry box where she kind of freaks out when it closes on her, and she's just so beautiful.
When I was in She's the Man, I'm a boy through half of the movie, and then in the end I get the guy. I wore this gorgeous Dolce & Gabbana gown. It was this beautiful green silk number, and it was exquisite. And so I definitely, it made me feel completely different.
Oh, good God.
Providing a relatable, vicarious experience of transformation on screen, fashion earns top billing in 27 dresses. The title refers to the Starz closet full of bridesmaid gowns worn by Katherine Heigl's character Jane.
What color is this? Vomit?
The film is a study in how fashion can function in a thematic and practical role in developing characters.
You have Jane, Katherine Heigl's plain Jane character, the older sister who's very sort of put together and proper and just wears things that are very conservative. And then you have sort of Tess, my character, who is supposed to be the crazy girl, party girl, and you can tell through her clothes that she's flashy and she's very in on her fashion and in on the trends.
So what do you think? I thought you were wearing Mom's dress.
It is Mom's dress. Well, parts of it.
27 dresses really spoke to everyone because we've all worn that horrible bridesmaid's dress. I mean, you wear these dresses to prove your friendship.
This is a metaphor for her character. She's a pushover. She says yes to all these horrible dresses, and you really see how her character evolves throughout the film. By throwing away those dresses, she's reclaiming her identity. So the costumes absolutely translate into who her character is.
As the movie goes along, you feel a little bit more of her femininity coming through, and she's letting her hair hang down a little bit more. And so I think sort of as the character arc, because she starts to love herself and be herself, you need that in the costume as well.
And so the costume designer establishes the basic elements of appropriate dress for that scene. For other scenes, well, the same process again.
Whether it's a tiny little movie, just a modern romance, or a huge spectacle like Gladiator, we start the same way, with the screenplay. We read the screenplay, and then we talk to the director. And what the director has to tell us is, who are these people? We're like anthropologists. Anthropology is a study of man, and costume design is the study of the people in the screenplay.
A costume designer dresses somebody from the inside out. We care about what kind of underwear they're wearing. It's it's really important when you're dressing somebody for a film to kind of think about what are they wearing after they take their shower? What is the process? What goes on underneath? What makes sense? And it's a real internal process. The process of fashion is a completely external fashion. It's disposable. It's changeable.
Hi, I'm Elle Woods, and this is Breezer Woods, and we're both Gemini vegetarians. I have a bachelor's degree in fashion merchandising from CULA. 2 weeks ago, I saw Cameron Diaz at Fred Segal, and I talked her out of buying this truly heinous Angora sweater. Whoever said orange was the new pink was seriously disturbed.
Thinking pink was the key to bringing actress Reese Witherspoon to life as fashion-forward law student Elle Woods in Legally Blonde.
That is a perfect example of the clothes helping to create the character. I mean, so tacky, matchy-matchy, high fashion, low fashion, cosmopolitan, glamour magazine. It was, you know, everything merged into one total fashion victim, and then you had this really smart girl. Complete contradiction. Cleavage and braids.
Just the shoes alone help define that character. That tells you this person is invested in being pretty in a relatively conservative but playful way. But the sound of those heels and the determination in the sound of those heels, it's like, I'm gonna get there.
With cooperation from some of the biggest names in couture, the film and its sequel were fashion eye candy. Color was the character's ultimate calling card.
Elle Woods, without her pink and her crazy, you know, feathered hats and all that, she wouldn't have been Elle Woods.
Pink says feminine, it says fun, it says bubblegum, and you just always envision a blonde in pink for some reason, so it was perfect.
Pink, you know, everybody was out running around in pink. You gotta look like Elle Woods. Wardrobe is so important because kids, the tween market, are so influenced by fashion. They're the ones spending money. So I think movies like Legally Blonde, really the clothes affect everyone.
Excuse me, I have some shopping to do. I think that the clothes can almost make a movie, and the movies can make the clothes. It goes both ways. Women go to sort of be inspired by the fashion in the film. Even if it's subconscious, they're still there sort of wanting to be that character, and part of wanting to be that character is wanting to dress like that character.
Most people don't watch fashion shows, they watch movies, and movies are like long fashion shows. So you watch a movie and you say, oh, I really like what this character's wearing, and you go out and buy it.
Hollywood takes its cues from the fashion world, but also influences what people wear because so many people see what the various movie stars are wearing.
Movies use fashion to tell their stories, and then the fashion industry takes that and takes what you see on screen and sells it.
You never know what's gonna catch on or what's gonna really impact people. But when there's a magic, when there's a chemistry, when there's a uniqueness, then it somehow transcends and spreads like a virus.
The 2007 film Atonement caused an epidemic. The tragic love story won the Golden Globe for Best Picture and was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including an Oscar nod for actress Keira Knightley. Yet it was Knightley's wardrobe that stole the show.
Every year there seems to be a specific dress that captures the public's imagination. This last year for 2007 was actually the green dress worn by Keira Knightley in the movie Atonement.
That dress, if somebody ever said to me what was the best part of the movie Atonement, I would say Keira Knightley in that green dress.
I mean, the color was just superb, and she put a design of a dress from that period with a color that wasn't really from that time. And it was fantastic.
It is a style of dress that's been around for more than 70 years. It's the beautiful bias cut gown that really kind of molds the body beautifully. You can't really wear a lot of undergarments under these types of dresses because you would see all the lines. So of course that's very sexy.
And then you can take someone like Keira Knightley, who is considered a real icon at the moment on the red carpet because she's always taking risks and doing things that are very daring. So I think the two also play off of each other very much.
To have a beautiful movie star in a very popular film wearing this gorgeous dress, it really captured the female population.
The dress became a case study in how film fashion makes it to street level. As Atonement gained wide distribution and awards buzz, dressmakers across the country were flooded with demand for affordable replicas of the scene-stealing style. New York-based Faviana is one outfit that embraced the opportunity creating a mass-produced version of the design.
I think women in general, they want to look glamorous, they want to look sexy, and everyone wants to look beautiful. So that was one of the reasons we felt that was an important dress for us to make.
Catering primarily to prom dates and bridesmaids, Faviana is in the business of what they call movie-inspired fashions.
I think the first celebrity-inspired dress that we designed, I would say, was probably the dress from Titanic. We saw an influx of young girls calling us and sending us letters, asking us to make that Titanic dress, and we did. It was not an exact design or an exact replica of it. It was inspired by the movie dress, but it was really the first movie replica we made.
Now the Atonement dress adds to a catalog that features spin-offs of Kate Hudson's yellow party dress from How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Nicole Kidman's sparkling gown from The Golden Compass, and more.
A lot of people call it copycatting, but we don't really see it that way because there's a place for everyone in the market. Those trends are set for women, and we take those trends and we produce dresses for real women.
In recent years, increasing red carpet coverage has driven this demand for Hollywood fashion.
Such a style icon, and black is back. Beautiful Penelope Cruz, stunning in her Vera Wang strapless
Very, very delicate jewelry.
Jennifer Lopez, always the fashion.
J-Lo really knows how to work.
Kate Winslet in Valentino, and Kate Blanchett in her Armani Privé. Metallics are another big trend.
Bold choices in acting, and she makes bold choices in fashion.
To die for. To die for. The girls are getting it right.
Very simple, very elegant.
Oscar de la Renta is a star. He's a star on the red carpet. He's one of our most...
I just decided to work with Monsieur Lacroix.
I worked exclusively with him. He made me 3 different dresses. Leather, silk, satin. I love this dress. It was very classic and conscious. I love the colors. I thought it was pretty. Simple as that.
The biggest difference from old Hollywood to today's red carpets is the volume. I mean, and volume in every sense of the word. There was less photographers. There was, less celebrities coming out. There was less events happening. So now it's become this, giant machine, and I mean the demand is like unending.
Growing up and just looking through those magazines myself, I didn't know about style. I got my fashion sense through looking at magazines and looking at the celebrities and what they were wearing.
The Oscars is the biggest fashion show in the world. Essentially, red carpet events are fashion shows nowadays that millions more people get to see than whatever the shows are in Paris or Milan or New York.
I'm nervous, I'm excited, I'm grateful, I'm speechless.
Every network now almost has their own version because it's so popular. Because that red carpet is played again in the pages of People magazine, in the pages of Us Weekly, in the pages of all the celebrity magazines, and then it's played again when you see sort of gossip sites. Did they pull it off? Fashion hit or miss? I mean, it just sort of echoes on and on for several weeks.
There is such a huge demand today for people to look like celebrities. The hair, the makeup, the clothes. And as an editor at a magazine, we really take that to heart. We make sure we have every look from the red carpet, from movie premieres. How can you get that look? What is something you can buy that looks just like it, maybe not as expensive? So, I think if you open any magazine today, it shows you how you can translate the aspirational into something that's accessible.
This past year, red was the most prevalent color on the red carpet. It was just one of those colors that we saw over and over again, whether it was from Katherine Heigl, whether it was from Miley Cyrus, and it was unbelievable because the following week I went to a wedding. I would say over 50% of the women that were at this wedding were wearing red dresses, and I think it's such an obvious connection.
That phenomenon of the regular woman wanting to look like her favorite star really is something that has enormous economic power in the fashion industry today.
Selling Hollywood style, however, is not only about mass-producing couture. Here on New York's 7th Avenue, Fashion Avenue, home of the American Garment Center, is another sign of the times. Retail giant Macy's, for example, now routinely shows lines with movie themes. Pirate-inspired designs are still a big seller, and Star Wars is geek chic.
I think it starts with a concept, and you have design teams who figure out how to bring it to market in a very new way.
When you speak about the Atonement movie and that green dress, for instance, we bought many green dresses. and we sold them all. It was a huge success. And maybe the clients don't speak about the actress when they come to buy, but there is this influence, unquestionably.
I'm also convinced that there's an element of people out there who buy product like that who never wear it, simply because of the collectible factor. That they know in perhaps 50 years hence, it'll become worth quite a bit more money.
Movies with such a devoted fan base are big draws at the box office and in fashion. James Bond, for example, in all his tuxedoed incarnations, 007 has been the ultimate role model for men's fashion for more than 4 decades, through 22 films and 6 different stars. From trained killer cool to young hipster irony, Hollywood's fashion influence is also about grasping onto an attitude portrayed on screen.
Sometimes there's this outcome where people want to buy stuff that isn't really being marketed to them. And so there's this unexplainable phenomenon of us really sort of wanting to copy movies and wanting to become sort of closer to our characters by buying stuff that they're wearing.
Beverly Hills Pop, you remember the t-shirt, Mumford, I think it was? Like that shirt, it sold a lot, you know what I mean? And it's the silliest thing. People get caught up with the silliest thing.
The movies of director Wes Anderson, a distinct fashion plate in his own right, are a testament to this power of movies to launch unexpected fashion trends.
Wes Anderson has a very specific fashion in his movie. It's almost like J.D. Salinger comes to life. The fashion in those films work to create a very isolated world of strangeness and yet sanity in these characters. And look how weirdly they dress.
The Royal Tenenbaums reportedly caused a spike in demand for red tracksuits, like the one worn by Ben Stiller and his boys. The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou inspired a cult following, from Bill Murray's blue-striped Adidas sneakers on up to his knit cap.
It's more than imitation. And I think it's about how the character looked in that moment in the film and what it all means.
Last year in the movies, something I would never have anticipated at all, and it was the movie The Queen, about Queen Elizabeth II. And it was the slicker jacket. And suddenly those types of outdoor jackets were selling out in department stores. Now, Queen Elizabeth II is not a fashion leader, but there's this psychology that happens. How you explain it, I'm not quite certain. Why something suddenly becomes very popular.
I think that often what inspires people from a film is like change. You know, it's that person or, you know, celebrity or, you know, they're a style icon because they make you go, whoa, I never thought of that.
Hollywood's power to affect the style status quo is as old as the popularity of motion pictures. And iconic stars have always made the loudest fashion statements.
But the public makes a hit. The public makes an icon. The public embraces a character, and the public wants the clothes. And that's how clothes influence fashion.
As far back as the 1930s, for example, Katharine Hepburn's preference for high-waisted pants forever altered women's wardrobe.
Katharine Hepburn was one of the first women to really embrace pants. If you watch a movie like Woman of the Year, she's wearing pants throughout that movie. And if you see Bringing Up Baby, it's a very flowy pantsuit, but she is wearing a form of pants, you know, and she hated dresses. I mean, she's been quoted as saying that she would like not, you know, she'd walk around in her pantyhose until they could let her wear pants.
Have you ever broken any rules, Selena? Gosh, you're right. Shall we make an exception in her case? Why don't we make up a rule of our own?
I really love Katharine Hepburn and the way that she owns the clothes. You know, the clothes don't own her, and there's a complete unself-consciousness about her and her attitude towards fashion. You don't feel any attitude towards fashion at all. It's all expedient and yet beautiful and fluid.
I know that Ralph Lauren was really inspired by her. Calvin Klein was really inspired by her. So she gets kind of less credit in terms of how much she influenced the sort of masculine style and make it feminine too. Marlene Dietrich did it a little earlier, but that was a little more cheeky. It was a little more kind of androgynous, kind of sexual type style. But it was really Katharine Hepburn. It kind of made it a really big fashion statement.
Clark Gable changed men's clothes. It happened in 1934, in the year's Best Picture, a Frank Capra film that went down in history not for its 5 Oscar figurines, but for its Best Actor's bare chest.
Clark Gable took his shirt off he did not have an undershirt on when men wore undershirts, and suddenly undershirt sales plummeted. And this was in the 1930s when the movie industry and the fashion industry had not quite gotten together yet, and it was a surprise. And actually the undergarment industry went to Hollywood and said, would you please put Clark Gable in an undershirt? And they did, to help the sales of undershirts.
From those early days onward, motion pictures have been turning studio sirens and leading men into larger-than-life fashion icons.
Style icons are generational. Any actor or personality who has a point of view, I think you can feel who they are and that there's a certain continuity in how they present themselves and a confidence, to me, is a real style icon.
It was such mold-breaking star power that brought film and fashion together, especially after the end of the traditional studio system. Hollywood fell for heroic nonconformists and rugged individualists. This rebirth of cool suited the ever-evolving idea of fashion.
Well, I think there was this period in the 50s and 60s where fashion and Hollywood were intertwined.
Suddenly, there was a shift. Youth culture was starting to become much more important, both in society but also as an economic force. They had money that they could spend, and they were buying leather jackets and jeans. And so here are icons of actors that were wearing this and giving that cool persona. It didn't matter that it was Levi Strauss jeans. It mattered that it was James Dean wearing them.
How do I look?
Very good. I must say I'm amazed.
You were a darling to help. I could never have done it without you.
Women gravitated toward a free spirit of their own, a character named Holly Golightly, played by Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn is considered the patron saint of fashion, largely because she introduced the little black dress in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
If I hear the words Breakfast at Tiffany's now, I see Audrey. Glasses, hat, pearls, dress, and I hear Moon River. It's the package. That's what movies are. She's packaged. So everything works in conjunction.
Everything about the way the character is created and expressed, it ties in with their wardrobe. I mean, you have the famous moment of like Audrey Hepburn early in the morning getting out of the cab with the black cocktail dress on, drinking her coffee, staring in the windows at Tiffany, and your mind starts to understand the character.
Breakfast at Tiffany's is one of the most beautiful films ever made, and in many ways, but of course, if we're talking about the fashion, it was so feminine and it was so flattering to the female body. It was very classy and classic.
Don't you just love it?
Love what?
Tiffany's.
The style of the star in the film was the result of teamwork between Hepburn's personal favorite designer, Hubert de Givenchy, and the supervision of Edith Head, the most celebrated costume designer in Hollywood history.
It was sort of like this downtown gammon, but uptown look that she had. Like, she wouldn't wear diamonds in Breakfast at Tiffany's, you know. She wore pearls because she thought diamonds were for older women. It was the trench coat, the lighter lips, the darker eye makeup. She was really ahead of her time in terms of what was going to happen in the 60s.
Hepburn would later be called the most influential fashion icon of the 20th century. Her full body of work would come to include some of the most memorable romances of their times. But Breakfast at Tiffany's was her calling card.
It was the simplicity of her look. It was very influential.
The historical value of that star turn would resonate for decades. In fact, 45 years after the film's release, Hepburn's famed little black dress was sold at auction for an astounding $800,000.
Audrey Hepburn's little black dress in Breakfast at Tiffany's was something that you still see at parties and on red carpets, and I think that has definitely sort of made its mark on everybody and will never go away, I hope.
Back in her day, Hepburn's impact was part of a larger shift. The eccentricity of Holly Golightly begat a new breed of fashion icon. For women, traditionally the largest consumers of fashion, that meant characters and stars who were bold and distinctive, symbols of independence.
the Bonnie and Clyde look was something that became a look of the 70s.
Bonnie and Clyde was nominated for costume design. Faye Dunaway's look was really popular.
Faye Dunaway looked so chic in that movie with her bob and the little beret, and it was sort of unique to her at that time, and there was something sort of dangerous about that movie, and her look, I think, really set a trend.
The shirts were very feminine, but the way she put her clothes together was very masculine. You could tell she was a strong woman, but with a feminine touch. And Annie Hall was the same way to me.
I love what you're wearing.
Oh, you do? Yeah? Oh, well, it's, this tie is a present from Grammy Hall.
Who? Grammy Hall?
Yeah, my Grammy.
What are you kidding? What'd you do, grow up in a Norman Rockwell painting?
With Diane Keaton and Annie Hall, the designer, who is Ruth Morley, found those clothes, the vest, the hat, the baggy pants, the men's shoes, the ties, the shirt, all over Lower Manhattan. She was in vintage shops everywhere onto 14th Street. She went to every single Goodwill vintage shop and combined all of those clothes. And of course, women saw the movie and related to the character.
I don't know. I wasn't... I got this VW out there. What a jerk, yeah.
It was a big fashion statement. It was this masculine style that nobody was really wearing that then at the time. And Keaton also got the Academy Award for Best Actress, and part of that was probably due to her quirky style. It went along with her quirky la-di-da character, too.
I think Annie Hall is definitely a very signature movie that has affected fashion and trends for many years now. And I think that when you take certain designers, whether it's Dolce & Gabbana or Jean-Paul Gaultier or even Christian Dior, there's that element of a woman dressing in a more tailored, sort of man-like way.
The biggest and more unexpected fads of the 80s.
Flashdance, total, fashion iconic moment. Leg warmers, leggings, leotards, cut off, sweatshirts with the studding. I mean, I remember as like a really little kid being like, I loved my leg warmers. I loved that movie.
There's that one image that came from the movie poster of Jennifer Beal sitting there with her arms between her legs with like the cut-off sweatshirt. It started a trend everywhere.
I had a sweatshirt that was like that. It was my favorite sweatshirt, and I washed it and I put it in the dryer at a heat that was way too high, and the head hole shrunk, so I couldn't get my head through it, and I just cut out and made a bigger hole for my head.
From the time I was in art school, I used to go to dance classes and sketch from the dancers at their rehearsals. They used to take their warm-up clothes and cut them so that for maneuverability. It just seemed like a natural thing for Jennifer to have done.
Maybe it was in the zeitgeist. It's also how it's combined. But it's also the story. It's about the character, making that irresistible.
I think it was a lot of things coming together. Jennifer was an extremely sympathetic character. People wanted to relate to her, being the underdog and achieving her goals. Every young girl's dream could be seen in that movie. Also, what Adrian Lyne did, creating the first full-length music video, was something that was so exciting and beautiful to look at.
It's not just about dance. The costumes are telling you that this is a person who's an individual and will really adhere to their individuality at pretty much all costs.
It kind of captured a whole, young generation.
Any kind of film that becomes an iconic film, like Flashdance, it is very influential.
Movies really capture something, and immediately have an effect on the way we all, think about ourselves and think about fashion.
There was that fashion movement of Saturday Night Fever with the white three-piece suit, and we all had to have one, and, their shirts unbuttoned down to there. Even at 12, I still had to have one of those.
I was on the set of the movie Scarface, and I would see him dressed by the wardrobe person. I didn't know exactly what a costume designer was. I was like 12 years old, but his wardrobe in that movie was so brilliant. I mean, he wore this white suit. That fashion, which was unique to the story that they were telling about a Cuban Marielito who probably had some bad taste, but it was cool. It fit the character.
Another one that really popularized a different type of fashion was Desperately Seeking Susan with Madonna, and she'd already was just coming into her own as a big pop star.
I remember being 6 years old and wanting my bracelets all the way out my arm and my necklaces, layers and layers of necklaces, and my lace gloves. And Madonna was inspiring everyone from both her music and her film.
I did my hair like Madonna. I wore the lace gloves like Madonna.
I would remember putting the whole gear together from, the bow on your head, all the bangles and the fishnet blouse. And we were traveling to Europe at the time, and I remember going through security, and I'd ring all through the place. I was like, do you really need it? Slowing the family down, but I had to have all my bangles and my Madonna getup. So she definitely influenced me, that's for sure.
Certain people have a sensibility of what young people, and it's because what they like. See, it's not that they are sensing what other people are gonna like. They're doing what they like, what they think is cute.
You don't understand. This is an Alaya.
And a what?
It's like a totally important designer.
And I will totally shoot you in the head.
I was a big fan of Clueless, and I know it's not some major movie like Gone with the Wind, but as a young girl, I was 12, and I was so inspired by their fashion of the knee-highs and plaid skirts with sweaters and polo shirts. At the time, I thought that was the coolest movie ever, and I think the fashion in that sort of set a trend at that time.
Clueless kind of redefined fashion in the teenage culture. It really showed how important brands were.
What the hell is that?
A dress.
Says who?
Calvin Klein.
It looks like underwear.
And just their familiarity with fashion designers, all of that, you really wouldn't have seen that in a movie before. More sophisticated Beverly Hills type women talked about things like Gucci and Dolce & Gabbana. And then that spilled over into the teen culture because these are Beverly Hills teens, rich teens. And then, as a consequence, spilled over into mainstream teenage culture, for better or for worse.
Sex and the City was the most glamorous movie release of 2008. Based on the TV series starring Sarah Jessica Parker, the film put fashion front and center.
In Sex and the City, I think it was Sarah Jessica Parker who once said that the city of New York was the fifth lead character, but I think it would be equally easy to say that fashion is the fifth lead character.
Amongst the four girls, there was 300 fashion wardrobe changes. Carrie Bradshaw alone, 81. It was anywhere from Vivienne Westwood to Dolce & Gabbana to Yves Saint Laurent. You had the gladiator shoe, you had the Burberry studded belt, you had the bags from Vuitton, Manolo Blahnik, Christian Louboutin. Any major designer that you could ever possibly fathom was in that movie. It was product placement, it was fashion.
Sex and the City made everyone aware of designers. A 16-year-old now is going to know all about Dolce & Gabbana, and they're going to know all about the new Marc Jacobs.
It's funny because there was so much brouhaha over all the branding and the product placement in Sex and the City, but that's what the movie's about. It's about fashion and clothes. And you know what? The ladies were loyal to that.
The driving force behind this phenomenon was a New Yorker with shocking pink hair and a flair for the unusual, Patricia Field.
We have fun. It's a dream job. It's a dream show.
Patricia Field became a gigantic figure in the fashion industry and really went from being this kind of quirky stylist and shop owner on 8th Street to the person who was dictating style for a whole generation of women.
Clothes had to be 2 seasons in advance, so all of the clothes are in store now. Really modern. I like the way that she tried new things, and it's about experimentation, and that's what fashion is all about.
As a designer stylist who also does costumes, Field is a rare throwback to old Hollywood.
There was a time when film really used to lead fashion, especially on the red carpet, like at the Oscars, where actors would wear their costume designers' gowns.
Coco Chanel was one of the most important female fashion designers that France has ever known. She also had a very brief career as a Hollywood costume designer in the 30s. She got quickly very sick of the Hollywood studio system and of having to answer to so many other bosses when she'd really been running her own show for so long. So she left after a very short while.
Despite the culture clash between fashion house and studio, many big-name designers found the lure of cinema irresistible. Like Givenchy, whose collaborations with Audrey Hepburn in the 50s and 60s became legendary, including an Oscar nomination for Funny Face in 1957. Or the late Yves Saint Laurent, who from the 60s to the 90s was credited on some 20 different films and TV shows. From French New Wave cinema to the classic 1963 comedy, The Pink Panther. Over the past decade, Jean-Paul Gaultier has turned into perhaps the most prolific designer presence on the screen.
Jean-Paul Gaultier designed the costumes exclusively for The Fifth Element, for City of Lost Children, and magnificently so, beautifully done. I applaud his beautiful, amazing work.
But it was an Italian designer who harnessed Hollywood's commercial potential like none other. Today, Giorgio Armani is a global icon of red carpets and runways. His brand is a staple of storefronts and shopping malls everywhere. But in the late 70s, he was a relatively modest designer in Europe who took a calculated risk to go global. American Gigolo starred Richard Gere as a dashing male escort. His affair with a client played by former model Lauren Hutton becomes something more than business.
Excusez-moi. Puis-je m'asseoir un instant? J'ai surpris votre conversation.
Bien sûr. For Armani, though, the film meant big business.
Giorgio Armani early on saw, before a lot of other designers, the value of Hollywood in getting recognition for his clothing.
It really changed America's perception of Giorgio Armani as being a major influence, especially men's fashion.
And that one scene when Richard Gere is deciding what he's going to wear that night, and he's just throwing all of his Armani shirts on the bed and then coordinating ties. It's almost like a fashion show without anybody in the clothes. It became very apparent, you know, what something like that could do for a brand.
American Gigolo definitely helped Giorgio Armani because people watched it and felt like, okay, if I want to look as good as Richard Gere, I got to go get the Armani suit.
Designers today have taken that lesson to heart. Crossing over to work in wardrobe and directly with actors is practically a job requirement. Product placement makes fashion sense.
It doesn't mean that I'll sell more dresses. It doesn't translate into that all the time, but it does mean more exposure. People are aware of the brand. They know how to pronounce the name of the brand. You know, those translate into trends right away because as soon as the pictures are taken, in a week, they run in different magazines.
So now, now it's like a free-for-all. I mean, there's, hundreds of brands that are trying to get access to these celebrities.
Most of the actresses who go to these big award shows are being paid to wear these designers. And I think it's kind of a dark secret that's in Hollywood, but it's really the truth.
From the jewelry, to the handbags, to the shoes, to even the hair and the makeup, saying that they wore something, all of these things have a price. You walk on the red carpet, you're wearing someone's gown, that's like $2 million worth of free advertising. You can't pay for that.
The selling power of superstardom was once in the hands of the so-called supermodel.
The supermodel came into being in the 80s when clothing was desirable because it was worn by a Christy Turlington or a Linda Evangelista or a Naomi Campbell or a Cindy Crawford. These girls were the faces of Versace or Gaultier or Chanel. Their elegance and their beauty became the selling point for the designers that they were representing.
There was just a period of time when these models were just like superstars, bigger than even the movie stars.
I mean, Linda Evangelista once said she wouldn't get out of bed for less than $10,000 a day. That's how hot they were. They were on every magazine cover. They were selling every product. Hollywood wasn't stupid. They saw that women were buying into this, and they thought, oh, maybe we should cast them in our films.
Hollywood embraced supermodel cinema, rushing to join forces with this new breed of celebrity.
The trend of models becoming actors is a pretty old trend because if you think about it, there aren't that many people who have become incredibly successful brands and actors in Hollywood based on a modeling career.
Definitely interesting, that connection of modeling and Hollywood and fashion and what works and what translates. Some girls are gorgeous on camera, but they can't deliver a line. Cindy Crawford, never been able to make the transition. Probably not that interested. Why would you? When you're Cindy, why bother?
Today, it's not the model turned actor, but the actor turned model.
The model's heyday is gone, you know. The actresses have really dominated the magazine covers, and you rarely see a model on a magazine cover anymore.
Now it's really more about, oh, she's like my friend, like a Sarah Jessica Parker.
And I think everybody kind of in the business got fed up and said, you know, I'm taking all this crap from a model. I know I did personally. You know, here's someone who's making $5,000, $10,000 a day. I'd rather have Eva Longoria put demands on me. At least she's famous and people know who she is, as opposed to these supermodels that the industry created. These are already stars.
Kate Winslet is a much more relatable person to see on a cover. She's shapelier. You know, Jessica Biel has a really strong, beautiful body. You're seeing people that you can relate to a little bit more.
Models, as beautiful as they are anonymous. But we know actors. We're connected to them. But we're connected to them because of the parts they play.
Things have shifted so much over the last couple of years, really. The new millennium really just shifted the power of fashion and the power of celebrity as opposed to movie stars and designers.
Today, the wattage of Hollywood stars' marketing power has never been stronger.
We had this phase, you know, what I call the new Hollywood glamour.
Celebrities aren't just content right now being in films. They want to develop their brand. They are their own Coca-Cola can. So it's not just movies. It's now movies, it's clothing line, it's fragrance, everything.
There used to be a stigma that if you're an actor, you can't sell a product. You know, and a few of them would just sort of slip off to Japan or Europe and do some selling on the side. And now it's everywhere.
Not only are they launching these other designers, they're launching themselves as designers now too.
Sienna Miller has set up her own with her sister. She has her own label.
Sarah Jessica Parker. Of course she's going to capitalize on the fact that people love her fashion, know her for fashion, and why not?
Mila Jovovich Hawk. It's really cool and funky. You know, Mandy Moore, this is for real women. Kristen Davis announced a line that she's debuting that completely tied in with Sex and the City.
Jennifer Lopez's Sweet Face line or the J-Lo line. Jessica Simpson, you're seeing all over Macy's her shoes. People want her shoes. They even want her hair now that she's developed. You could actually buy her hair.
One of the first pioneers in terms of an actress who's creating a clothing line was Jaclyn Smith. We all know her from Charlie's Angels, beautiful woman, amazing actress. And suddenly, she's creating a clothing line for Kmart. This was unbelievable at the time, but she's having the last laugh. That line has sold over hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'd say she sort of became the godmother of this whole generation now of actresses that are creating clothing lines. They realize there's something into making a brand for yourself.
Actress Amanda Bynes is one of the latest to try their hand in this billion-dollar sector of the fashion industry. Playing Penny Pingleton in the 2007 hit Hairspray was the springboard for Bynes to launch a line aimed at the lucrative tween market.
I'm inspired by girls all the time. You know, I meet so many stylish women, and so I'm inspired every day. And it's like you buy somebody's movie, you buy somebody's shirt or jeans. And so I totally get it. I never thought I would have been one of them.
There's a whole notion of branding now. It's such an odd idea, you know, that you can brand yourself, that you can brand your style.
I think the motivation behind this is quite simply money. We should never take the focus off the fact that fashion is about making money. It's about selling product. That's what's driving these trends.
Fashion and Hollywood are billion-dollar businesses with global appeal. The backlot and the fashion house may be vastly different cultures, but the arts of style and cinema have always had a common thread: creating character. And today, sharing both talent and star power means their artistic and commercial interests are more intertwined than ever.
Film has made fashion a lot more glamorous.
We've become more of a free culture as far as fashion goes nowadays.
I think you have to keep your mind open, and you have to sort of keep thinking what would be something different or unexpected and still pretty and kind of cool.
Fashion is basically something that's constantly, you know, changing and evolving and then recycling itself in different ways.
That's the thing with fashion, is it keeps coming back and back and back.
I think the future of Hollywood and the fashion designer is going to be fascinating because it's going to have to do with technology. Both the technology of how the garment industry itself changes, new textiles that are developed, but also even more importantly, what the movie industry can do with special effects.
Fashion and Hollywood are both rapidly changing industries, and both are evolving all the time to stay current and cutting edge.
And what's so beautiful for the public and what's so irresistible for the public is to see that change.
It's as simple as the greatest stuff comes out of a collaboration between a stylist, an artist, you know, and or celebrity and a director. And that's what movies do. It communicates to people differently, and some people are affected by the clothes. A moving picture is really the most powerful tool to affect people's senses.
I think a lot of us grow up playing dress up and trying on our parents' clothes. And, you know, so it's always fun. It's sort of like you get to play dress up again, but with really beautiful clothes.